It was just one act of kindness, letting a soaked stranger rest for the night. But by morning, John's quiet farm was a war zone. Helicopters circled, armed agents stormed the property, and a manhunt unfolded right in front of him. The stranger, a fugitive with a dangerous secret, and John was caught in the middle. Welcome to Untold Narratives. Let's get started. Montana nights are usually silent, just the wind weaving through the wheat and the low hum of crickets echoing in the distance. John Marlowe's farm sat on the edge of that silence, a quiet 40-acre stretch passed down from his father and his father before that. It wasn't much, but it was his, a place where the days were long, the neighbors were few, and you could still leave your front door unlocked without a second thought. John was 62, a wiry man with weathered hands, sharp eyes, and a heart far too generous for his own good. He'd lived alone since his wife passed a decade ago, and in that time the quiet had grown heavier, filled only by the sound of chores, the creak of floorboards, and the occasional conversation at the town co-op. Still, folks around knew him. They remembered how he gave away half his harvest to struggling families when a drought hit hard 3 summers back. Marlowe's got a soft spot, they'd say, doesn't know how to say no. That soft spot was tested one night when a storm rolled in hard and fast, thunder shaking the walls, rain whipping across the land like it had something to prove. Just after midnight, a knock came from the old barn. It was a stranger, soaked to the bone, hood pulled low, clothes clinging like he'd walked through the storm for miles. He didn't say much, just asked if he could sleep in the hay until morning. John looked at him for a long second. His gut said, "Be cautious," but his heart had already decided. "Barn's yours," he muttered, grabbing an old blanket from the porch. He didn't know it yet, but that single act of kindness would set off a chain of events no one could have predicted. John Marlowe wasn't just another small-town farmer. Beneath the flannel shirts and sun-leathered skin was a man built by storms. Some he lived through, others he carried inside. A Vietnam veteran, John had seen things in the jungle that never quite left him. But it wasn't war that hollowed out his chest. It was the day he got the folded flag and final salute for his only son, Daniel, a Marine who never made it back from Afghanistan. Since then, John lived on in quiet grief. He never remarried, never left Montana. Instead, he stayed with the land, tending crops by day and writing letters by night, letters to a son who would never read them. He kept a weathered journal filled with ink-stained pages, apologies, memories, updates about the changing seasons, things Daniel would have loved. By the window near the porch, a dusty locket and a pair of dog tags hang like forgotten wind chimes, catching the light during sunrise and swinging just slightly during storms. People in town respected John. Some pitied him. Others just knew he had a habit of giving. Tools, time, food, anything, really. If you're lost or low, folks would say, Marlowe will help you, even if it breaks him a little. So when the stranger arrived that night, soaked, silent, shoulders heavy with something more than rain, John didn't hesitate. He handed over an old wool blanket, nodded toward the hayloft, and walked back to the house. The man had introduced himself simply. Cal. Mid-30s, maybe younger. His face was pale and drawn, his eyes darting like a hunted animal's. He wore worn boots, jeans caked in mud, and carried a tattered green backpack slung low like a soldier's rucksack. He said little, didn't explain how he got there, and didn't ask for more than a place to rest. John noticed the details, the way Cal kept glancing toward the tree line, how he slept with his boots still on, the tension in his jaw like he hadn't really exhaled in days. Something felt off, but John, driven by habit and heartache, looked past it. He'd seen broken men before. Maybe Cal was just another one. The storm had calmed by midnight, but the wind kept whispering across the fields. as if the land itself sensed something wasn't right. Around 2 a.m., John was jolted from sleep by a sharp clanging noise. He sat up in bed, heart pounding. Out here, it was usually coyotes, sometimes raccoons trying to pry open feed bins. He grabbed his flashlight and slipped on his boots. But after a quick scan through the kitchen window, the yard looked empty. Rain was still falling in sheets. Probably just the wind knocking something loose, he thought. At 5 a.m. sharp, same as every day, John was out tending to the chickens. The world was still wrapped in blue dawn, the wet grass cold against his boots. He tossed feed absently, still half thinking about the noise earlier. That's when he saw it. Shadows, just beyond the tree line, moving fast but low. Not deer, not anything natural. A moment later, the morning exploded. Engines roared as a convoy of matte black SUVs and military-grade vehicles surged through the front gate, tires chewing up the gravel drive. Helicopters thundered overhead, spotlights sweeping across the barn and house. John's instincts kicked in, but there was nowhere to run. Tactical teams in full combat gear poured out like smoke, guns drawn, voices booming through megaphones. "Down, on the ground, now!" John froze, confused, terrified, before dropping to his knees with his hands raised. Gravel bit into his skin as a soldier pressed a knee into his back. One of them shoved a photo into the dirt beside his face. Blurred, blackened edges. A man, handcuffed, standing in front of a burning compound. It was Cal. "Where is the fugitive?" The man barked, voice sharp and clipped. "What fugitive?" He said he just needed a place to rest. "Don't play dumb. You gave him shelter." "I didn't know," John sputtered, heart thundering. "He was just a traveler. I let him sleep in the barn." But when they stormed the barn with weapons raised, it was empty. No sign of Cal, just disturbed hay and muddy footprints that vanished before reaching the back wall. "He's gone," one agent growled, tightening his grip on John's collar. "You helped him escape." "No," John shouted. I didn't even talk to him much. I thought he was just tired." The soldiers didn't believe him, not entirely. Their eyes scanned every part of the property. Every word John spoke felt like it was being recorded, analyzed, dissected. He was cuffed and sat on a plastic chair under a tarp, while agents ransacked his home. The dog tags on the window clinked softly in the breeze. As hours dragged on, flashbacks crept in. The sound of taps at his son's funeral, the weight of the folded flag, the look in the chaplain's eyes when he said, "Your son died a hero." And now? What had he done? Had he just betrayed everything his son had died for? He was too old to be naive. He should have seen the signs, the restlessness, the silence, the backpack. He should have said no. An agent in a black jacket finally sat across from him, a tablet in hand. His face was expressionless. "His name isn't Cal," he said. "It's Lieutenant Callan Royce, former U.S. Cyber Division Specialist. 3 months ago, he disappeared with classified intel that doesn't officially exist." John's breath hitched. "Word is he accessed a system not even we fully understand. Something experimental. After that, he went rogue. He's wanted by 5 agencies. We don't even know what he's carrying." "He didn't say anything," John muttered. "Just asked for a place to sleep." The agent narrowed his eyes. "He picked your farm for a reason, Mr. Marlowe. Either that, or you were just convenient." The air felt thick with implication. John stared into the fields. So familiar, so safe, now crawling with soldiers and humming drones. And somewhere out there, Callan Royce was gone. No tracks, no heat signature, no explanation. Vanished. And the only man who saw him last was John. Night falls hard over the farm, but no one sleeps. The tactical team sets up camp like they're preparing for war. Bright halogens wash the fields in pale light. Armed silhouettes move in and out of the barn. Drones buzz low, scanning every inch. John sits in his darkened kitchen, hands trembling over a chipped mug of coffee. Outside, shadows move past the window. Inside, his heart won't settle. And then he remembers the old hatch. Decades ago, bootleggers used a hidden tunnel beneath the barn to move whiskey across the valley. Sealed for years, forgotten by most. John slips out, boots crunching quietly over gravel. No one sees him as he rounds the barn. He finds the hatch, the rusted ring still lodged under the feeding trough. He hesitates, then pulls. It creaks open, and there, in the narrow crawl space beneath the hay and boards, is Cal. His face is streaked with dirt, eyes wild but not surprised. He raises both hands slowly. "I didn't run," Cal whispers. "I knew they wouldn't listen. They never do." John stares at him, chest tight. "They showed me your picture," he says. "Said you burned a base down, stole something dangerous." Cal doesn't flinch. "And who do you think told them that story?" He leans forward, voice low, urgent. "I uncovered something I wasn't supposed to see, something they were building, experimenting with. I made a report. 2 days later, the facility goes up in flames and they pin it on me. No trial, no defense, just silence." John's jaw tightens. "This whole farm is swarming with agents." "They're not here to arrest me," Cal says. "They're here to erase me." Silence. John sees it then, the way Cal's hands shake, the fire buried in his eyes. The same look his son had the night before he left for Afghanistan. Not fear, not guilt, resolve. For a long moment, the weight of a decision hangs in the air. Then John exhales, slow and ragged. "Come on," he mutters, "before I change my mind." He leads Cal through the old cellar behind the barn, down into the tunnel, carved through limestone, damp and narrow. It snakes under the east field toward the riverbed. Back in the barn, agents discover the open hatch. "We've got movement." Alarms erupt. Helicopters lift. Flashlights slice through the dark. John and Cal emerge from the tunnel into moonlit woods, barely 100 yards ahead of the first team. Tires screech in the distance, dogs bark. Gunfire cracks into the trees above their heads. It's a full-on chase, but John knows every route, every hidden gully, every fence gap. This is his land, his world. And now it's the only thing standing between a hunted man and the truth. John stumbles back onto his property just before dawn, shirt torn, face scratched and limping hard. 2 agents spot him near the silo. Guns raise, orders shout. He collapses to his knees, hands in the air. "He forced me," John groans. "Said he'd kill me if I didn't help him get out." They swarm him, cuff him, drag him into the barn for questioning. Inside, he repeats the same story over and over, that Cal had a gun, that he didn't know who he really was, that he was just trying to survive. But his voice is flat, hollow. He knows they don't believe him. For hours, they grill him, pull up his military record, question his loyalty, ask about the tunnel, the hatch, every part of his land. They find nothing, no surveillance footage, no solid evidence he helped. And eventually, they let him go. But they don't leave. For weeks, unmarked SUVs roll past the edge of his wheat fields. Small drones hum over his barn at night, flickering red eyes drifting through the sky like fireflies. He hears clicks on his landline, notices boot prints near his shed that don't match his own, but no one says anything. No visits, no charges, just silence. Then one day he wakes up, and they're gone. No more buzzing, no more shadows. Just wind rustling through the crops again. He turns on the news every morning, looking for a name, a story, a hint of what happened. Nothing. No mention of California, no headlines, not even a whisper on fringe radio stations. It's like none of it ever happened. But John knows better. The hay in the barn still smells like sweat and gun oil. The hatch is still half open, and deep in the woods near the river, he finds a strip of torn fabric caught on a branch. Same color as Cal's jacket. He picks it up, folds it into his palm, and walks home. Winter fades. The farm slowly returns to rhythm. Harvest schedules, feed deliveries, mailboxes filled with catalogs and bills. But John never forgets. He still looks over his shoulder when walking the fence line, still pauses at the hatch in the barn, half expecting to hear a voice call out from below. Then one morning, months after it all ended, a letter arrives. No return address, no stamp, just a plain envelope placed carefully in the center of his porch swing. Inside is a single photo. Calculations, standing on a rocky cliff. The sea behind him, wild and open. He's smiling, folded with the photo, a note in blocky, careful handwriting. "Thank you for believing." John stares at it for a long time. No explanation, no destination, just those 4 words. He walks to the mantel, opens the small wooden box that holds his son's dog tags, slides the photo next to them, then sits in his chair by the window, the same spot he's written his letters from for years. He doesn't know what parts of Cal's story were real, maybe none of it, maybe all of it, but something in that photo, in those words, settles something in him. That night, before bed, John steps out onto the porch, looks up at the stars, and leaves the barn door unlocked. For the first time in years, he lets the silence be just that. Silence, not fear, not grief, just peace. Sometimes doing the right thing means risking everything, even when the truth hides in silence. And sometimes belief, quiet, stubborn belief, is the only thing that can turn strangers into something more.